Hey guys, welcome back to another exciting episode of Breaking Bitcoin. I'm very pleased to be able to sit down with Gareth from Zilliqa today. I'm going to find out about Zilliqa more and just ask some questions. So Gareth, thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, pleasure.
Highly appreciate it.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
You too. So you are a layer one protocol. So
Yep.
it's an alternative blockchain.
Yep.
You guys have figured out how to do sharding. And just kind of briefly on that, like, why were you guys able to figure out sharding and Ethereum can't seem to figure out sharding? Like, what's the difference there? What's the problem?
We have a lot of smart people on our team.
Okay. Shots fired.
So the research actually started in Singapore. So it was part of the NSU, so the University of Singapore, that started writing a smart paper on scalability for blockchain. And so that actually spurred into a project that turned into an actual company known as Zilliqa. So I think because it has this background in academia and people doing very deep research into scalability, then we kind of had that leg up, especially looking at existing issues that were happening in blockchain and paying attention to them and being able to actually address them, right? Because we're learning from the past what happened before us.
Right.
So we're actually able to learn some of the issues that happened in the past and being able to provide those answers.
So would you say that, is it also possible the fact that, Zilliqa doesn't have, at the time of development, sharding was something that you guys were implementing from the beginning, whereas Ethereum seems like sharding was not an idea when Ethereum started, and then it blossomed into this very busy network with a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
And so to build layers underneath what's already been developed is often difficult. To go back and rewrite history. If you start from a base layer, a good foundation, you're building on top of that's easy, but going back and building the past to be synchronous with the future, do you think that's also potentially a contributor?
I wouldn't add any word, like you
Sure.
described it the right way.
Sure.
I think it's so hard for a project that already has success, that is maintaining a lot of infrastructure and transaction on top of its network, to be able to also change and really disrupt itself, right? It's a lot easier to just kind of start from scratch. So, kudos to Ethereum to actually being able to do that much research and really be willing to take that chance, because they're really changing so much of the underlying infrastructure. So there's a lot of great teams doing amazing work, so I'm actually very impressed by what they do. But it's obviously a lot harder than just starting from scratch and having almost like a long view and seeing some of the issues that happened before you.
Yeah.
Right?
What would you say, I'm always curious when people propose, layer one protocols, right?
Yep.
I'm always curious, like, where do you, because I come from a pretty, I guess, softening over the years, but pretty strong background in Bitcoin maximalism, right? Not toxic Bitcoin maximalism,
Okay.
like Bitcoin, only Bitcoin, and everything else is garbage. I've never thought that. I just had Simon or Ruben on here, and we had a good talk about this.
Okay.
But I'm always curious, like, what do developers see as the use case for their projects? Some say we're going to replace Bitcoin. This is a better Bitcoin. Bitcoin was Netscape. Bye, you know what I mean? This is MSN Messenger now, right? And it's like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So that's, so we're waiting for Google Chrome after that, but still, you get the point. So where do you see Zilliqa kind of fitting into, a Bitcoin ecosystem, or is Zilliqa designed to be a replacement to Bitcoin?
I think that's a good question, and many projects are asking themselves that same question, because
Existential crisis.
Yeah.
We built this thing now. Do we want to take over the world, or do we want to be the Facebook of crypto? Yeah.
I think the best way to look at it is the space is rich in different research and different visions, and so it's not necessarily that we have to compete, because crypto is so small when you think about it, right? It's like we're
Very
here
small
today,
space.
and it's great to see all this energy, but when we take it the big picture, we're really small right now. I know it's been 10 years, we've been around, but there's still a lot more growth for us to go out there in terms of adoption, in terms of having more mainstream people like using blockchain products or technology. So I think right now it's more really a matter of just kind of pushing forward in direction that we think makes sense, and then we have use cases that we believe fit our vision. So for example, when it comes to scalability, things like video games, where you have multiple users playing the same game, like maybe like 1,000 users playing on the same platform at the same time. The phase on scalability really matters there, because you don't want to have a game that lags or getting killed for no reason because your computer was too slow, right? So things like that. Like there's different use cases where different blockchain I think fit those use cases.
Yep.
So rather than saying that we're trying to compete with people, I think we're more. It's almost like we look at technology. There's different languages. They don't necessarily compete with each other. It's more different platforms or for different use cases. So
and let the open market decide. That's
exactly.
Generally been my laissez-faire approach to different protocols and coins.
So Bitcoin maximalist then.
Yeah. Thank you, man. I actually like to think I'm quite a open one. Let's see here. Wally asks, regarding Zill's transaction throughput, what's the roadmap for TPS, transactions per second specifically? Does the linear scalability have a shelf life or diminishing returns?
That's a great question. Very technical, so that's good. So we think of scalability in the type of transaction that we handle on the network. So we kind of break it down into three. We have the user-to-user type of transactions. So it's kind of like the transaction you will see on Bitcoin. Then you have user to smart contract transactions. So that's where it gets into the sharding, and that's where it's asking about the linearity of our scalability, which is when it comes to being able to do transaction within the same shard, we're really able to see amazing gain in scalability, right? In terms of speed and how fast the transaction are accomplished. When it comes to actual transactions that are more complex, like more complex smart contracts that then talk to another smart contracts on a different shard, that then talk to another smart contract on different shards, and then we were trying to remediate the states that are different across those shards. That's a difficult thing to resolve, right? And I think that's where a lot of projects that talk about sharding are still in research mode, so we don't necessarily have specific numbers that we can share right now. We're definitely doing some stress tests to make sure that our solution actually works for at least the first two transactions I mentioned. Mm-hmm. For the last one, I think it's still, and people call it state scalability. That's a topic that I think need more research for us to be able to come up with specific numbers.
Following up on that, he said, what, if anything, did Zill consciously sacrifice in order to achieve more scalability than Ethereum?
Ooh, okay.
Digging deep with a knife, man.
Yeah, so,
sorry, I should have warned you.
I think that was a great question because it kind of talks about blockchain trilemma, right? This idea that you can only have 2 out of 3 properties of decentralization, security, and scalability. So the idea is that if we're able to gain scalability, then somehow we're sacrificing decentralization. The thing I see is it's more not necessarily that we're sacrificing, but maybe it's a different vision, right? Is it that decentralization is a goal or is it a tool, right? And so when you look at it as a goal, then you probably would just want to disrupt everything, decentralize everything. Our philosophy is more, if you think of decentralization as a tool, the specific use case where it makes sense to decentralize things, then there's no real sacrifice that we're making. We're just enabling use cases. Like say, for example, we have nodes that are being maintained across the world right now. As we scale, we add more shards. And so this progressive decentralization to us is a good thing because it matches how our blockchain actually grows. Now, some people may think that from the beginning we should have achieved decentralization from the get-go, but we tend to think it's more something that reflects how the network should evolve. Right?
And I mean, why is that? Like obviously, some people come in and they just hear the word decentralization and then they just parrot it. Correct me where I'm astray, because I'm just curious, right? So, Zilliqa is not open. It's not an open source project.
Oh, it is. It is.
It is an open source project. Anybody can go and fork your repo right now.
That too. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. I mean, if somebody's code is open source, like, can I fork your repo? If I can't fork your repo, then there's
Yeah, everything is on GitHub. It's publicly available. Our blockchain code, our smart contract code. We recently have a new code base for reference. Right, so the same thing for ERCs for Ethereum or the BIPs for Bitcoin. We now have a standard to improve the blockchain, so this is public as well. So yeah, people can copy, fork our code, do whatever they want.
And again, this is a layer 1 protocol with, you guys have smart contracts, smart contract programmability. You said you can do formal verification, which obviously is Cardano's big, kind of selling point to be the next blockchain as well. So, again, this is a competition for the best layer 1 protocol, and we already had the conversation about like kind of where does Zilliqa fit into that whole thing. We kind of settled on, well, it's choice, it's what the open market wants situation. I think that answers my question. I mean, look, but to be honest, like, what is the, we kind of talked about sacrificing things here, and you gave me a good answer, right? Which I'm not sure if you're right or wrong. I don't know. I have to think about that one. That's what happens with good answers. You have to think about it for a while.
I have to think about it too.
But you basically talked about, is decentralization a goal or is it a tool? Is it a tool that you get to basically utilize to get where you want to go, to get the result that you desire? But from a dyed in the wool, like Bitcoin maximalist, whatever, like point of view, would you say that would be maybe a sticking point for somebody that believes in decentralization as a goal, right?
Yeah,
when they're looking at Zilliqa's code base.
I think it's a question of, again, like what's the purpose of decentralization for me, right? And then different people will have a different definition of what decentralization should be. If we just look at having multiple nodes that people can use to verify transactions, and anyone can run those nodes, then you can say that decentralization is a matter of how many of those nodes are around and how much ability they have to actually verify transactions versus having to rely on more central authorities to verify those transactions. So in that case, on Zilliqa, people can run a node and verify transactions. So anyone can do that right now. So I think it's more a matter of a vision of where it fits for me, but obviously from a Bitcoin maximalist point of view, it might be different. They might think of it as, if you're not able to be decentralized from day one, then there must be something wrong in your overall vision or architecture.
So I think maybe the controversy is this, or maybe not controversy, but the issue is this. You guys have very large nodes that one could look at as centralized authority, right? And over time, as the network adds users and you gain a bigger network effect, you can add more shards and decentralize the network.
Yep,
right?
That sounds right.
Now, do you think in this scenario there'll come a point where 5 years in the future, 10 years in the future, you guys will be decentralized fully, or there will always be an element of centralization? Like one big Zilliqa master node that...
Yeah, I think the model is actually moving towards decentralization. So the fact that we have an architecture that handles and that wants to grow and already thinking about how to distribute those nodes across different shards, that means on some level from the very beginning, we're designing for decentralization. So then it's a matter of people deciding for themselves if that's decentralized enough for them.
Sure.
I think it's decentralized.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see here. It says so the assumption here is Zilliqa decided to not require confirmations and instead use finality and presumed confirmation. In that process, did Zilliqa specifically choose modified proof of work for this reason, or was it some other reason that you choose modified proof of work?
Oh, I see. To be honest, that's a little bit over my head on this one, so I'm not sure. I mean,
Wally, you heard it here first, man. Got him.
Yeah, you got me. That's right. We do have some great developers.
Yeah, I was going to say, Wally, we're here all day. They're right over there. I'll go get that answer for you.
So check us at our booth. We have some great guys there. They're working, and they do have that answer.
Yeah,
so
awesome. We got pretty interesting times here in crypto, man. Obviously, we had 2017, 2018, and now it's like 2019. It's been so obviously we had the summer, the fall, and the winter. Now people are tentatively poking their heads up, saying that it's crypto spring. Like, kind of how do you feel? It's pretty hard not to notice new excitement, new enthusiasm, heads popping out, projects coming to market that ICO'd in 2017, for example. So like, just kind of, what are your thoughts on the overall space? Where are we at? Where are we heading?
Yeah, I agree.
How long until we get
like
to 20,000?
It's not summer quite yet. It's not like bright and sunny and ready to go to the beach, but I can see change of conversation. The conversation around adoption, I think, is maturing. We're seeing more, I guess, like larger partners from like more mainstream avenues, like coming into the space. So I think in general, crypto is evolving, maturing, maybe that winter was good. Maybe the fact that for almost 2 years we had a really bear market actually made us focus on the technology and really build and deliver it. And so being able to see that, I think now just being to this blockchain event, you get to see all those different projects that are finally like delivering on the promise. It's great. So no, it's exciting.
It is, I've really enjoyed being here. It's absolutely fantastic. Just talking to people and getting a fresh look at the space and talking to people about the fundamentals and why they're still here. And I mean, it's really neat to see a lot of projects just put their head down and work to and come to market with their project.
Yeah, all that hard work. I think sometimes people don't see that. Like people have been working really hard in the space. Like burning the midnight oil is a regular thing in crypto.
Yeah. I mean, you can see when you just walk in the exhibition door. There's just booths and booths and booths and booths and booths, and those are all projects that have done a whole lot of work.
Yep.
So I think this is, I think they're interested in kind of how you became involved in cryptocurrency, and what was the first coin that you bought, and how would you change that decision if you could?
Oh, that's interesting. The first coin I bought was actually Cardano.
Okay, all right.
So I think I'm not sure if I would change the decision because it was great. I got to learn from it. But it just, from a coding point of view, there's certain project that resonate with you. So
cool.
It just made sense. It was one of those projects that talked about a certain way of thinking about coding, a way of thinking about just like verifying the quality of your code. That's always something that resonated with me. Like when you think about transaction, to me it just makes sense that your code has to have a certain level of quality. You can't just run millions of dollars of transaction on the code that you audited. It has to be more than that. There has to be some kind of guarantee. Otherwise, how you sleep as a bank or as an owner of large assets. So, yeah, certain projects just resonated with me. My background is as an engineer. I worked on mobile applications, mostly entertainment. But just as a coder, I think sometimes there's little things that you pay attention to. And being able to see those open source projects, you go on GitHub, you see the activities. I can like go into a pull request and see the conversation between developers. That gives you a sense of confidence that they're actually not just pushing code, but they have a conversation about the quality of their code, the decisions that they made, and those are public. You can see them like tracing back to years ago. So it felt like it was just meant for that.
And you got that with Cardano.
Yeah.
Giacomo Zucco this morning tweeted that GitHub has basically kowtowed. I can't remember what it is. I want to pull up so GitHub so a nation state requested that they remove a repo.
Whoa.
And they complied. So they removed a repo due to a line item, due to a request from a nation state. So do you have this? As a coder, I'm not a coder. So like, do you have any opinions on that or?
Because
people are freaking out, like GitHub's totally compromised now. That's but that's like WikiLeaks taking down one story, or like it's like GitHub. Okay, they took down one thing, like that they're completely bad. But a lot of cryptocurrency projects, I'd say almost all cryptocurrency projects, focus their code in their GitHub repo, and that is considered kind of the ultimate source. Would we want to get rid of that? Yeah, it says right here, GitHub removes Tsunami Democratics APK after a takedown order from Spain. Yeah.
From Spain, okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds a bit surprising, but I think that goes back to a conversation around decentralization.
Thank you.
If we define it as simply.
Oh, sure.
Okay, let's see that.
Yay!
I'm a bit surprised, but again, decentralization is also around things like that, like always using tools that can be just taken away from us without any say-so. Just a central authority just decide to take that away underneath us. So there's different dimension of decentralization. I think that touched on that. I'm a bit surprised. I've always loved GitHub, so.
I'm just starting to use Git for the love of God. So
it's a great platform, great tool. So I'd love to hear more on why they made that decision, and if it's something that actually makes sense. Maybe sometimes there are some cases where you could justify that decision, but it's not necessarily something that's positive for sure.
For sure. Let's see if we got any more questions. We got with the exponential technology curve. How do you feel about fiat currency?
Wow. Okay.
Big question.
Exponential curve of fiat currency. Is it around adoption?
Yeah,
or,
to be honest, I love you Midwest attempts, but that's kind of like, we're here in crypto, man, so like we definitely like, fiat's on the way out, man, Good? So, yeah, I guess, the way I would word that question is he's like, basically, with the pace at which technology is growing and growing and growing, and obviously it's not a linear growth, it's an exponential growth, because not every invention doesn't lead to another invention, it leads to 2 inventions, which lead to 4, 8, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
And obviously us moving toward digitizing the dollar and decentralizing currency, everything like that, do you feel that technology is playing a role in fiat currency kind of being phased out? Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? Like, what are your thoughts on fiat currency?
That makes more sense that way. Yeah, I think there's a definitely an evolution towards replacing some of the function of fiat currency. But I mean, we're in an event right now on blockchain, and we still paid through fiat to actually come here. So,
well, no, not here though. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I paid my plane and my Airbnb and the Uber over here. The Tesla over here. But from what I understand, like, you can't pay with anything in cash here. You have to pay with crypto at the event.
Yeah, within
the event. As far as I understand, yeah. Although I haven't gotten an opportunity to do that. Where can I spend some Bitcoin around here, man? Like, is there a place? Like, nobody's made me pay for anything. Everything's been free.
That's even better, right?
Yeah,
maybe
free
there's
breakfast,
a case
free lunch, free dinner.
Maybe the alternative
free
to fiat
swag.
is free.
By the way, you guys got Zilliqa t-shirts? That's the only t-shirt I haven't got. Free t-shirts.
Yeah, even better than... yes, I'd say crypto can be an alternative to fiat, and that's great. I'm looking forward to that. But I think it'll be hard for the average, person who's not necessarily friendly to or used to crypto to mentally make that shift to something that they're used to for their whole life.
Gotcha.
Like if you use the dollar or some other currency, it takes quite a while for you to start thinking in another currency. So I think it's a generational thing that could happen in the future. And that's what I think we're working on. We're almost in that space where we get to decide if this is where we think crypto should go or it should go another direction. From what I see, I think yes. I think there's definitely an option for crypto to start replacing some fiat currency, probably the weaker ones, the ones that don't have any kind of power institution that back them up. I don't want to name names, but we know who we're talking about. And especially in places where there are a lot of economical issues or monetary policies that are really not designed for people in general. So I think those are obvious use cases for crypto to provide infrastructure and just a facility for people to commerce and to store their value. So there I think there's some use cases, but sometime in the West it's a little harder to see those use cases really getting adopted.
Sure. I agree with you on that. I mean, obviously, I feel that fiat currency, as we kind of talked about, is fairly totalitarian. I don't like the reserve, I don't like the reserve fractional system, fractional reserve, excuse me, I misspoke. Yeah. And I think that if we look just throughout history, I think that governments generally are the biggest threat to citizens, and so the minting and issuance of money is a huge power that they have. So I'd like to replace that. Will we land on Mars first or have a federal coin?
That's a real cool question.
We got some real cool people.
I think FedCoin first.
FedCoin first?
Yeah.
And then
to look at
or
the
land
news.
on Mars. Mars. I said the moon. Clearly we landed on. Do you think we landed on the moon?
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
I hope so.
I'd like
if we
so.
didn't, oh wow, that's quite the show.
It's quite the shocker, isn't it?
Yeah, quite the show as well. Yeah.
What are some exciting dApps on the Zilliqa blockchain?
Yes, quite a few. Actually, there was one that had a stand, Unstoppable Domain.
Okay.
So that's really
Unstoppable domains. Been hearing that a lot.
Yeah, it's like a really cool use case of a blockchain that scales. You have a domain that can use as a wallet, and so for all transactions on BTC, Ethereum, and other blockchain, you can use that umbrella domain name as your address for a transaction to be sent to you.
And it's human readable, right? Is how I understand it. So the way this would work is, you say, "Hey Justin, can I send you some Bitcoin?" And I say, "Yeah, man, just send it to JustinsBitcoin.com," right?
Yeah.
right?
.crypto.
Now the only because I've heard about this a lot. I mean, the only fly in the ointment, or the only thing that I want to make people aware of, as I understand it, is that sounds really awesome, and I think that's great. Human readable wallets are great. But you actually need a wallet client that supports that feature. It's not like this is some universal thing you can do with all Bitcoin wallets, correct?
That's true. Yeah.
And that's just going to take time to reach adoption because, Electrum, Armory, Exodus, you can't do that with any of those, big popular wallet clients.
So one caveat that you still get to own that domain name.
Well, sure,
so
of course. Yeah,
it's
not
yours.
It's just when the adoption's there to make it convenient, you can definitely.
Yeah. So I think of it as almost like a crawl before you walk kind of situation.
It's like an investment. You're like, hey, one day sending Bitcoin to me is going to be super easy.
Yeah.
So. And imagine, I'm sure people were buying up, Amazon, the Amazon. What's the
next rush?
What's the ending one? So it's not Amazon.com.
So it's
.zil, yeah.
and they just released .crypto recently.
Okay,
yeah.
We're gonna be a buy up Justin.crypto. Let me tell you. Between Ethereum, Neo, EOS, which of these seems the most worrisome competitor? Or if there's another one, let them know.
Worrisome competitor.
Who are you afraid's coming at you? This will be the last question too, by the way.
I think Ethereum has such a large network effect that for most developers, that the default choice is Ethereum. Like, why even bother? Because it takes a while to deep dive into each project. Like, let's say someone is interested in a Tezos or Algorand. It sounds really exciting, but it takes a while to do a deep dive until you know that this is something that fits you, that makes sense, and you see it, evolving in the next 5 to 10 years. So getting people to actually understand like what Zilliqa value proposition is, it takes some time. So sometimes it's almost like they used to say like no one got fired from picking IBM.
Yeah.
I think Ethereum is kind of getting into that place. So we're not worried about it, but I think it's kind of like that one blockchain where people tend to ask us, well, how do you guys compare to them? Right?
You got to keep your eyes on them.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good things happening there, so more power to them.
Any kind of last thing you want to share?
No, I mean, I think we did a good round of questions. So
thank you, man.
That's good.
I appreciate it. And thank you guys so much for the great questions. I mean, they mostly came from you. I just sat here and I was like,
amazing.
Tell me about Zilliqa.
Yeah, great question. You got me there, too.
Thank you, Gareth. I highly appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me, my friend.
It was a pleasure.
I'm going to come by for those t-shirts.
Okay, yeah, we have more swag as well. We got notebooks, pens, everything. So.